Tonight, the race to get storm-damaged schools repaired in time for the first class of the year. An incredible escape for tourists as a light plane crashes on a Great Barrier Reef island. Devastating news for Sam Kerr. The superstar ruptures her ACL 6 months out from the Paris Olympics. And Margot Robbie may have missed an acting award, but her Barbie-inspired dress was a big winner at the Golden Globes. Good evening, Lexy Hamilton-Smith with ABC News. The race is on to have damaged schools across the state repaired in time for classes to begin in a fortnight. More than 100 schools have been battered by natural disasters in recent weeks, but the government is confident they will be operational by the time the first bell rings.
Preparing for the start of the school year has an extra urgency in 2024.
The roof structure was damaged and one of the rooms was particularly impacted. So that building will be out of action for a little while.
This is just one of 130 schools across the state damaged by severe storms and flooding.
When I saw a lot of the trees that had fallen within the school grounds, we believe that just one building being damaged was actually a bit of a godsend.
At other schools on the Gold Coast, Defence Force personnel are lending a hand, just as they are in the wider community. In far north Queensland, the school clean-up continues in flood-ravaged areas. The state government says timing will be tight, but it's confident all schools will start on time.
There's one that we're racing against the clock in far north Queensland and hoping it will be okay. At this stage, we think it will be, but every single school will be functional.
All while the repair bill continues to mount.
No school will be financially behind as a result of the storm damage. We are still assessing the damage, and so we don't have a dollar figure just yet.
And taxpayers are warned of the toll the recovery may take.
The human consequences of this heavy weather are what matter most, but there will be consequences for our economy and for our budget as well.
The full cost of a disastrous summer holiday season may not be known for months. Mark Rigby, ABC News, Gold Coast.
A light aircraft has crashed on a remote island in the Great Barrier Reef, about 250 kilometres north of Cairns. All 10 people escaping with minor injuries. The plane carrying American tourists had reportedly taken off from Lizard Island when it attempted to return, clipping trees and flipping over. 9 adults and a 14-year-old girl were on board. One adult suffered a minor head injury and another an injured arm. 2 rescue helicopters, a Royal Flying Doctor Service plane were sent to the island to retrieve the passengers. Several remain in hospital in Cairns.
The pilot's clearly done an incredible job. I understand he's a local. He has extensive experience, so to walk away for something like that is just incredible.
4 teenagers have been arrested after allegedly live-streaming a joyride in a stolen vehicle on Brisbane's north side. Police say the teens took the car from Barden on Saturday, and after a polaire chase, it was intercepted with a tyre deflation device. 4 people allegedly tried to flee but were taken into custody. A 17-year-old boy has been charged with several offences, including dangerous operation of a motor vehicle. 2 boys aged 16 and 18 and a 15-year-old girl have been charged with the unlawful use of a motor vehicle.
For most of the serious violent offender group, social media is the #1 reason that they are committing offences, stealing cars and the like. It's not to attain property for personal benefit. It's to live stream and to obtain notoriety.
A survey by an independent online healthcare directory claims fewer than 1 in 4 Australians' medical practices are bulk billing all of their patients. While the federal government says it's spending billions of dollars on Medicare, doctors say more support is needed for patients struggling with cost of living pressures.
Health has become an expensive business for Justine. She had to visit the doctor about a dozen times last year while getting a diagnosis for ADHD.
I've spent out of pocket $2,000 in the first half of the year.
At that point, she reached Medicare's safety net, which means she got a higher rebate for the rest of the year. But she's disappointed bulk billing wasn't an option, and she's not alone. A healthcare website claims of the 6,000 clinics it anonymously surveyed, the number bulk billing all of their adult patients has fallen by 11 percentage points in the last year, from more than 34% in 2023 to just over 23% in 2024.
In 2022-23, over 1.2 million Australians across the entire country didn't go to see a GP because of concerns surrounding costs.
What day would suit you, mummies?
The government says it's invested billions, tripling the incentives paid to doctors who bulk bill children, pensioners and concession card holders. But it claims change will take time after a decade of neglect of Medicare under the coalition.
This is precisely why we tripled the bulk billing incentive. It's precisely why we set up 58 operational Medicare urgent care clinics around Australia.
The government's latest figures show 70% of all standard GP consults are bulk billed. This doctor is bulk billing slightly more than he was last year, but less than he was 3 years ago. And he says that's a worry for patients.
They're not getting the preventative care that they need, and somewhere down the track this is going to show up in adverse health outcomes and a greater burden on the rest of the system.
GPs are calling on Medicare to subsidise a wider age bracket and the longer appointments needed for complex cases. Claire Moody, ABC News.
The Matildas' Olympic hopes have suffered a major setback after captain Sam Kerr ruptured her ACL at a training camp in Morocco. Kerr is unlikely to return for the Paris Olympics, which are less than 7 months away.
Matilda's coach, Tony Gustafsson, has called it a devastating blow. Star striker Sam Kerr could be sidelined for up to 12 months.
My, heartfelt thoughts are with Sam at the moment. She has had her time on the sidelines with a few injuries in her career. I no doubt know that she has what it takes to come back from this better and stronger.
It's another setback for Kerr, whose Women's World Cup campaign last year was plagued by a calf injury. The 30-year-old will miss the Matildas' Olympic qualifiers against Uzbekistan next month.
She will have every resource, not only with Chelsea but with Matildas, to get her back onto the pitch.
Kerr is one of many female footballers to rupture their ACL, with women and girls up to 6 times more likely to experience the injury.
We know that women's football is under-resourced compared to men's. So we know that they may play on turf that's not as well kept as the men's side. Their timetables might be more packed. So things like that are gendered in nature. So there's different expectations put on the girls and women's game that we think could set girls and women's up for a higher risk of ACL injury.
Kerr is the first Australian woman to be nominated for the Ballon d'Or and appear on the cover of the video game FIFA. While it will be a race against time to play at the Olympics in July, she'll remain a key part of the Matildas as they set their sights on qualification.
No doubt they'll have her in and amongst the team as much as possible throughout her recovery so that she can still be that mentor that she was throughout the World Cup.
Jo Healy, ABC News.
There are concerns the brakes may be put on Summer Nats in Canberra after a senior police officer branded the event moron tourism. He also questioned the intelligence of some attendees after an all-out brawl between patrons and crowd control staff went viral on social media. Ethan French reports.
It's an event loved by petrolheads, but there's clearly no love lost between police and some of the attendees.
The behaviour of these drivers, they just haven't evolved very far. I think they've really plateaued as a species, a subspecies of the human race. I don't know what goes through their mind.
The 4-day Summer Nats Festival draws 130,000 people to Canberra every year. But after some of the behaviour over the weekend, not all will be welcomed back.
The real car enthusiasts are not the problem. It's the moron tourism that we get. If we set up an IQ testing station at the border instead of a vehicle testing station, we'd probably halve our problems.
Police are investigating this vicious fight, which marred Saturday and has since spread across social media.
We'll continue to work professionally and respond professionally to those sort of outbreaks.
We're also working closely with the event organisers and security.
It takes an extra 100 officers a day to police the festival, leaving the force stretched to the limit, managing the often rowdy influx.
They were all over Canberra and we're literally just going around playing whack-a-mole.
Police say 2 children and 2 adults were in this vehicle, caught doing an illegal burnout outside the official venue and just metres from pedestrians. The 22-year-old local driver, one of 13 people who had their car seized. 11 more were arrested for drink driving and 2 for antisocial behaviour. More than 100 vehicle defect notices were also issued, but organisers deny Summonat's patrons were solely responsible.
I don't think police were talking about Summonat's attendees or entrants in that. It's something, though, that does happen around the event and around the time of the event. But as he said, it happens all year.
I understand the frustration that police have. Well, they're dealing with this sort of bad behaviour on the streets of Canberra.
But the event isn't likely to burn out anytime soon. Bringing $35 million in revenue to the territory every year.
It is a draw card from all over Australia to the ACT in a quiet time for the territory.
Summonat's organisers say while they're reviewing this year's event, they're already planning for next year. Ethan French, ABC News, Canberra.
Bangladesh's Prime Minister has won an historic 5th term in Parliament in an election marred by boycotts and deadly violence. The opposition has accused the government of rigging the ballot, and voter turnout was only half what it was at the last election.
Clashes between 2 groups, accusing each other of rigging the vote. One side supports the ruling party's candidate, the other fighting for their local independent. People in the swelling crowd say there was ballot stuffing at a nearby polling station.
Police arrived pretty quickly on scene and dispersed what could have become a potentially deadly situation, but the atmosphere remains tense.
Boycott! 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 Just kilometres away, more protests. Many are worried about rising fuel and food prices as the once booming economy stagnates, but they don't see any point in voting. The election was boycotted by the main opposition party, who claim the country's institutions have been captured by the government and that the vote is unfair. The boycott almost guaranteed Sheikh Hasina another 5 years in power. She's been accused of running an authoritarian government, arresting almost 10,000 opposition party workers and some senior leaders in the months before the vote. Mohammed Sajal Hussein's father was one of those workers. An outspoken critic of PM Hasina, the tea stall owner was picked up by police in late October, 3 days before a deadly opposition rally. And the next time Mohammed Sajal saw his father was in hospital.
My father was struggling to breathe. He was admitted into the ICU but kept on the floor. He was handcuffed and his legs were also tied.
The family believes he was tortured by authorities for being an opposition party organiser.
Sheikh Hasina is killing people, and now again she is in power.
The government insists the election was free and fair, but a low voter turnout, a crackdown on dissent and the absence of any meaningful opposition are testing the country's democracy. Meghna Bali, ABC News, Dhaka.
In less than a fortnight, Taiwanese voters will go to the polls, and a major issue on their minds is how the self-governed island deals with its increasingly aggressive neighbour. In his New Year's address, the Chinese president repeated his comments to so-called reunification of China and Taiwan. And with Taiwan's military only a tenth the size of China's, increasing numbers of Taiwanese are taking matters into their own hands, turning to private academies which will offer civil defence training.
China wants Taiwan to know it's getting ready. Propaganda videos show a fierce fighting force on the move in its bid to take Taiwan back. But for the everyday people living in Taiwan, preparations are far more practical.
I have a fear of war, especially due to the war in Ukraine, which made me very worried.
Despite the increasing talk of conflict, many private citizens feel the Taiwanese government isn't doing enough to prepare, leaving a void that operations like Kuma Academy are seeking to fill, teaching basic skills that will assist in a Chinese invasion or blockade.
I was conscripted for 1 year, and that was about 12 years ago. Our mandatory military service in Taiwan isn't very comprehensive.
Nearly 2/3 of participants here are women. For many, this is the first time since school or university that they've actively learnt what to do in the event of an invasion or blockade.
My mother is in her 90s. Her mobility is quite limited due to her age. I hope that if I learn all these techniques and skills, I can help my family and neighbours.
Reading the news in Australia, you might think there's a constant sense of panic here in Taiwan, but really everyday life is very normal. And while there might be a sense of unease bubbling under the surface, day-to-day signs like these are often the only reminder of the tension simmering in the strait.
But organisers say demand for civil defence training is increasing and many participants are coming in feeling a sense of anxiety.
Because my child was just born, I felt a sense of panic. I thought, what if they attack?
It's all about all this mental preparedness. I mean, the thing is that resilience is more about all this willingness to fight, and resistance is more about all these practical skills.
Because if war comes, every little contribution will help. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Taipei.
Volunteers are becoming the backbone of reconstruction efforts in war-torn Ukraine. As the conflict with Russia rages on, one Queensland builder has put his life on hold to help rebuild homes reduced to rubble, and he's inspiring others to do the same.
Back in his Townsville workshop, but Manfred Hin's heart is in Ukraine. The 66-year-old builder spent 2023 restoring homes and schools, devastated by Russian attacks.
We've been involved in rebuilding 53 houses. We put more than 150 people on the roof. It's a never-ending story, but you can't sit back and do nothing.
Raised in post-war Germany, he's been horrified by the scale of human suffering as the conflict stretches on.
You make eye contact and it's stuck. It's great to help, but it's also hard to digest, and you see the suffering firsthand, That's when I talk about you see the best and the worst in humankind.
His story struck a chord with Hamish Sterling. The Tasmanian carpenter taught himself Ukrainian and stopped working for 3 months to join the restoration effort.
Even just the clearing rubble and demolishing a partially destroyed house means that they can rebuild and get on with their lives again. And that means everything when you've got nothing.
Manfred Hin won't be in Australia for long. The builder plans to spend the next few months fundraising before returning to Ukraine, where there's still so much work to be done.
The average cost of rebuilding a house in Ukraine is $2,500, which is not a lot. We have hundreds of houses lined up where we need fundings for.
Eventually, he hopes to create a network of builders without borders, inspiring more tradespeople to take their skills to the front line.
Letting the locals know that they're not forgotten, that the world's still paying attention and that the world still cares is hugely uplifting for them.
Lily Nothling, ABC News.
And time for finance now, and petrol prices remain high, but Australian drivers are actually getting a bargain, apparently. Daniel Ziffer explains.
Fuel is one of the few products where massive illuminated signs tell you the current price as you move around. So we're very sensitive to changes in it. A litre of unleaded petrol was, on average in Australia last week, $1.85. That's down a bit on the average for the past year. The price of diesel basically tracks this graph, but added about 10 cents more per litre. Instability in the Middle East isn't helping, and the price of crude oil leapt today, but there's another element adding to the pain at the pump. Australia is one of the only developed nations without fuel efficiency standards, meaning we get dumped with the world's dirty cars. The new standard was meant to be released before Christmas, but it didn't happen. The federal government says it is taking the time to get it right. And you might not like to hear this, but we have some of the cheapest and lowest tax fuel in the world. This is a list of similar countries in the OECD. Norway drills way more oil than we do and pays more too. So in summary, we don't tax it much and we don't insist on good cars to burn it. Overseas markets gave a largely negative lead for stock traders, and our share market copied the homework, falling slightly today. For many people, it was their first day back at work, but the Australian dollar is still on holiday, moving down 0.0002 of a cent against the American dollar. Let's call that flat. And that's finance.
Coming up on 7:30 with David Spears, a visit to Ground Zero of Japan's earthquake zone.
All that's left is the walls. This is the famous Market Street, with 1,000 years of history.
We set the table, and as soon as we sat down, bang, that was the first quake.
I'm sorry to say, but people who are missing now, I think that most of them will not be saved.
Also, I'll speak with Simon Baker about the new series, Boy Swallows Universe.
To sport now, an Australian Open organisers are hopeful fans haven't seen the last of Rafael Nadal after the Spanish champion pulled out of the tournament. The two-time winner suffered a minor injury while playing in Brisbane and will return to Spain to get treatment. Meanwhile, Australia's greatest hope, Alex de Minaur, says he loves proving the doubters wrong and he enjoys the best form of his career.
A rain-soaked Melbourne Park dampened the opening day of qualifying, but Alex de Minaur found a dry court as he tunes up ahead of his best chance at an Australian Open title. The 24-year-old has gained more fans after breaking into the top 10 for the first time.
It's a pretty good thing to wake up to this morning.
To get there, de Minaur boasted big United Cup wins over 3 top 10 players. Sometimes maligned for lacking the weapons to beat the best, he says he thrives on people's criticism.
It's something that, you know, I've heard my whole career and it's fine. I love proving people wrong.
De Minaur's hopes lifted overnight after Spanish great Rafael Nadal announced he's pulling out of the tournament after tearing a muscle in Brisbane.
Obviously extremely sad and disappointing that he's missing.
While only a minor injury, it could be the final time Australian fans see the 37-year-old up close.
I hope it's not the last time, but if it is the last time, I think it's, you know, pretty special for those that were in the stadium and those that were able to come along all week.
In Brisbane, Grigor Dimitrov enjoyed a quiet night after winning an ATP title trophy for the first time since 2017.
Yeah, we just got some food, packed, and got to bed. That was about it.
The 32-year-old Bulgarian snapped his title drought by beating young gun Holger Rune in the men's final. In the women's, Jelena Rybakina thrashed Arina Sabalenka to avenge last year's Australian Open final. Sabalenka won just 3 games in a stunning result. And Alexander Zverev has saved 2 match points to take Germany to a United Cup triumph over Poland in Sydney. Tom Maddox, ABC News.
Australia has levelled its T20 women's cricket series against India with a 6-wicket victory in Mumbai. Batting first, the hosts posted 8 for 130. Kim Garth, Annabelle Sutherland and Georgia Wareham each took 2 wickets for the tourists. In reply, Australia reached the victory target with an over to spare. Elise Perry top scored with an unbeaten 34 in her 300th international for Australia, hitting the winning runs with a 6.
It's kind of crept up on me a little bit, and in the last couple of days it sort of just made me reminisce where it all started, really, in the backyard with my dad and my brother. I'm especially grateful that somehow starting there has miraculously turned into a career for as long as it has been.
And Brisbane Heat is the first team to lock in a Big Bash final spot after a last ball thriller over the Hurricanes at the Gabba. The hosts struggled, posting a measly 133-run target, with captain Colin Munro scoring 56 after excellent bowling by Hobart. In reply, it was a strong start with the ball as the Heat picked up 4 quick wickets before rain arrived. With a revised target of 118 from 16 overs, the Heat looked in trouble but restricted the Hurricanes in the dying stages. It came down to the final ball, with the Heat winning by just 1 run to remain undefeated.
Heading into probably, two really tough games against Perth Scorchers, who have been the benchmark of the competition for the last sort of decade. It is really nice to know in the back of our mind that we have qualified for the finals, but we definitely want to keep winning and take some momentum into the business end of the tournament.
Oppenheimer has dominated at the Golden Globes with 5 awards from 8 nominations. Australian actors Elizabeth Debicki, who played Princess Diana in The Crown, and Sarah Snook, who played Shiv Roy in Succession, have each won their categories. Barbie actress and producer Margot Robbie was snubbed for an acting award, but she took home a statue recognising the film's extraordinary success at the box office.
A Barbie, a princess and a scheming heiress. 3 roles that earned 3 Australians Golden Globes. After 10 nominations, Margot Robbie's Barbie won 2 awards.
Hi, Barbie.
For Best Original Song and the new category of Cinematic and Box Office Achievement. It's now made $2 billion.
We want to thank the brave individuals at Warner's and Mattel for taking an extraordinary risk.
Margot Robbie missed out on Best Musical or Comedy Actress to Emma Stone in Poor Things, but 2 other Aussie stars were successful. Elizabeth Debicki, who played Princess Diana in The Crown, won Best Supporting Actress in a Drama.
This is just astonishing to me.
And Sarah Snook, who took home Best Actress in a Drama for her role as power-hungry Shiv Roy in hit show Succession.
This show it's changed my life.
Succession itself won 4 awards. Beef, which was inspired by a road rage encounter that actually happened to its creator, scooped up 3 statues.
Sir, I hope you honk and yell and inspire others for years to come.
In the film stakes, the night belonged to Oppenheimer, with 5 awards including Best Drama and Best Actor for Cillian Murphy.
Thank you.
These Golden Globes are the first since its governing body was disbanded over corruption issues and a lack of diversity. Lily Gladstone from Killers of the Flower Moon was the first Indigenous actor to be nominated and to win Best Actress. She began her acceptance speech in the Blackfeet language.
Native actors used to speak their lines in English, and then the sound mixers would run them backwards to accomplish Native languages on camera. This is an historic win. It doesn't belong to just me.
An award, she said, that she shared with every little Native kid with a dream. Zoe Ford, ABC News.
Weather time now, and a late thunderstorm on the Gold Coast has sadly hammered storm victims who've already lost roofs at Mount Tamborine. In fact, it's been a day of severe thunderstorm warnings right through from the Goldfields, northwest and central west, and still now through Dalby and Crow's Nest. Cunnamulla had some flash flooding after being smashed with more than 160 millimetres of rain yesterday. And if you take a look at the satellite, you can see the band of rain extending from the north of the country right down into the southeast, and it has brought with it an absolute drenching, particularly in Victoria, which is now on flood watch. It's all courtesy of a trough which is picking up a very humid air mass and dumping big falls across much of the nation, and the Bureau warns a monsoon is also on its way. Julia Creek scored 39 degrees today, with winter not far behind. Coastal cities hovered around 30 degrees, so it was warm but also wet. There seems to be no end to the rain. It will wax and wane as it continues to shift eastward, with much of Queensland experiencing isolated showers. So no surprise it was wet again in Brisbane today with a top of 29. Ipswich hit 30 degrees, as did the Sunshine Coast. Time for some photos now, and Paula found a lady making giant bubbles at Burleigh. You can almost see a face in there mixing in the clouds if you use your imagination. And Vince shows us that even in a storm, you can take a beauty from the car. And a sunrise after a storm. Steve from Pittsworth on the Darling Downs was up early to snap this one. Thanks, everyone. The soggy weather continues along the eastern seaboard tomorrow. Melbourne will be partly cloudy and 25, so will Adelaide, and gusty winds forecast for Perth. So wet again in the north, with temperatures reaching low to mid-30s in most regions. Out west, thunderstorms are set to hit much of the area, including the Channel Country, but Birdsville will be a dry standout hot and 39. For the southeast, for Tuesday, another dreary January day, sadly, with no sunshine in sight for now. Gayndah will still reach 33 though, and 29 for the Gold Coast. For Brisbane, an 80% chance of rain in the late morning and afternoon. Ipswich 31, and showers, no big falls are forecast though. On the bay, north to northeasterly winds and seas below a metre. Now sunrise will be 5:01 a.m. and sunset 6:48 p.m. And looking ahead, the sun will peek through on Thursday just a little for a while in Brisbane and in Ipswich, but sadly that rain will keep falling through right until Monday, if not further. And that is news to the moment. Thanks so much for your company. We'll keep you up to date on our website and our ABC apps, but now it's time to hand over to David Spears with 7:30.